I'm Mariah.
I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
I'm Tyler.
And this is Domesticating AI, our bi-weekly podcast about practical AI for developers. We help brace the feral open source AI landscape so you can tame it instead of getting dragged by it. By the end of this episode, you'll know when paying for tokens into the move versus when you should do open source models for your AI coding experiences. We're joined by Tyler Folkman. If you have never heard of him, that is your fault. He's a great guy, great content. He writes the AI Architect on Substack, which I love to read.
Thank you.
And you've got pretty much a lot of. I know you. I think I first interacted with you on the internet when you were at Ben Labs.
Sounds right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and you post a lot about AI agent coding workflows. A lot about coding. Like this is how you build stuff with AI mostly, and that's what we want to talk about today. Perfect, building stuff with AI. So we'll start with the news. So there's an article by Pydantic I included on here called "Human in the Loop is Tired," and it's basically their hypothesis is people just want the AI to build, and they don't want to tell the AI what to do anymore.
Wild prompt fatigue.
Yes, it's prompt fatigue, which I'm just like at this point at work when we're shipping stuff to production, I'm like, please, will you check what the AI does because it breaks so much? Yeah. Like, obviously, I think there's strategies for doing it better, but it's just...
I think there's a lot of good points they make in that article just around, like a lot of reviews, understanding, LLMs write so fast, the agents can move so fast, but there's still like this human verification aspect to everything, which, I don't think that's going away anytime soon, maybe eventually, but I just love the title. I want to write a piece and I'm like, I want to steal that title so bad. I wish I wrote it first. It's so clever. Human in the loop is tired.
Yeah, I mean, we code a lot with it at work, and if you don't get your systems right, you end up just becoming the reviewer for AI, which is a lot more tiring, in my opinion.
100%.
Like, it is more tiring to code review. Like, we've known that. Yeah. It's also more tiring to have to click yes all the time. So like finding the right balance between getting it to do the things you want it to and not do the things you don't want it to can help a lot.
And hopefully that's what we should talk about today. Yeah. Andrej Karpathy had a tweet that he said +1 for context engineering over prompt engineering because...
This one was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was June 2025. That's when that posted there. But for some reason, Google literally decided to put it on my feed like just today. Now.
Cool.
Because I was writing a blog post about how people need to get over prompt engineering and do context engineering.
It's real, right? We've talked a lot about the divide between semantics and pragmatics. I talked recently with Joe Reese and his practical AI people about this, but like semantics is the literal encoded information in words versus pragmatics, which is the context around it, right? You have to be pragmatic in order to get AI to do what you want and not do what you want. You have to give it enough pragmatic information for it to work.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
I think, I was just going to say that post was a while ago. That's kind of like when context engineering really blew up as like a word. Because
but people still haven't anyway. People I work with still don't know how to do it.
Well,
it's hard, right? You can't disambiguate semantic problems using more semantics, right? It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's just important in the context of understanding the difference between prompt engineering and context engineering and realizing that they're almost the same thing, but like context engineering, I think encapsulates more around what modern engineers are doing around AI than prompt engineering ever did. And so...
Yeah. I mean, I think prompt engineering was more about being smart about how you instructed the AI, and context engineering is more about being smart about the information you provide to the AI.
Yeah, make sure you say step by step is not context engineering.
Right. Which used to be more important, but the models have gotten a lot better. Like, make no mistakes, that's not really helping you.
Literally, that's my whole job right now. Anyway, last one.
Make sure you throw masterpiece in there.
Yeah.
Use best practices does not mean anything.
Yeah.
Last one is by DHH. that anyway, it was a quote. It was said, I raced Claude and Kimi K2 to find a bug. Kimi K2 fixed it in 21 seconds, and Claude took over a minute to make the plan and 2 minutes to execute. That's the quote. This was February 17th, much
I
more
think
recent.
the key there is that they came up with the same solution, right? It was
Both had the same
bug
fix, yes.
Yeah.
And the complexity of the bug matters for that type of thing. If the lower the complexity, the faster models will work better because they're faster and they get to the same solution. But as you move up the complexity chain, that can start to break. So it depends what the bug was.
That's why the tweets are such prime rage bait, because everybody's just going to see what they already want in it. Like, oh, yeah, this means Kimi K2 is better in all situations because it's faster, right?
Right.
Or Claude is better because it takes more time and it plans more, you know.
I think my takeaway from that 100% is you should use more than one model.
Yeah.
I think people have a favorite model and they're like, this is my life. You know, like I like to call people Claude bros because they will only ever use Claude. And I'm just like,
Put me in that camp.
yeah, you're a Claude bro? Great. We brought a Claude bro onto the podcast.
Well, that was something that came up yesterday at the AI Makerspace. We had in our cohort, right? They asked me, what is the best model? And I said, for what? And it started this whole big discussion because of exactly what you're saying. You can't tunnel vision with these things, even though they are that good, same as you can't tunnel vision with human experts.
Yeah.
I mean, another way to answer that is the one that comes out next month.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Because every new model breaks all the new benchmarks, and it's always the best one, and that's why they advertise it. And in fact, if it doesn't beat the benchmarks, then they usually don't even.
Yeah, it's not
It
released.
doesn't come out. Yeah.
5.4. It's out today, yesterday.
Yesterday was 5.4.
Yeah.
ChatGPT 5.4.
Oh.
Yeah, Gemini 3.1
I know you don't.
was
You don't
great.
pay. If it's OpenAI, Chris is like, that's not a thing.
Most of their benchmarks are bad. I mean, in the sense they don't actually benchmark against other models. If you look at their releases, it's only their own models. And the benchmarks are mostly being gamed at this point, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of articles on this. We just got to the point of oversaturation. So, they now know the benchmarks, so they do well in the benchmarks.
No way. We ran face first into Good Arts Law.
Yeah. But they're still somewhat useful.
I mean,
Directionally, I would say. They can help you know tiers of models.
for sure.
But within the tiers, they're not that helpful anymore.
Nice. Yeah. Just give you a nice vector.
Cool. Let's jump in. Well, we'll start with coding agents, right? Just general tips and tricks, how to separate. Let's start with this. What do you think is vibe coding? A lot of people just say anytime you're coding with AI, you're vibe coding, which I think is ridiculous. So let's tips and tricks. What is how to separate vibe coding from engineering with AI? And just the plug, that's literally the whole point of his Substack. It's engineering with AI. So everybody. Let's just have everybody go through what do you do when you want to do that?
When I generally think of vibe coding, I think about the companies where they're all designers need to use Claude Code and engineers use Claude Code, but they use it very differently. One builds something and has no way to verify it and is this looks good and ships it. And the other, takes that extra step to being oh, does this meet, security best practices? Am I worried about this actually taking down production? And so I think that is generally the divide in my mind is, do they just ship it because it did what they asked, or do they know what to look for beyond it built this feature, load testing, just testing in general, understanding those
maybe this
aspects.
is a hot take on my part, but I think that vibe coding is when you're just completely unbothered by it, where you give a prompt, you set up text notifications for when it actually responds, but then you just leave. You set it in YOLO mode, you don't watch it, you don't monitor it, it just does what it's going to do. And when it comes back, you just have a what do you call that? A pre-filled send? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Well, you're just pre-made message, just continue, right? Yeah. That's vibe coding to me, just completely unmonitored.
I don't know I know Chris hasn't, but I do use the Claude mobile app a lot with their code interface. And that's literally what it is. It is give me a prompt and it may ask a question if you told it to ask a question, but other than that, it gives you complete code in a PR.
What do they call YOLO mode in Claude?
Dangerously skip permissions.
Dangerously skip permission. Do you
Okay,
do
I've
that?
never done. No, I should say I
Okay.
only
The
do
only
that
way I
with the web
live.
app one. And sometimes I'll then check out the branch and do it locally. Sometimes I'm just
Cool.
merge and catch it later. But like that's just, I think I have noticed things like the Claude desktop app with their code or the Claude mobile app are trying to push us towards that for convenience. But I do that for only personal stuff. That's not anything I'm going to lose my job over.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction is vibe coding. Often there aren't a lot of consequences. For me, at least. I mean, I guess you could vibe code with consequences, but most smart people don't, I would say. So like if you're kind of like whatever happens, happens, that's probably more vibe coding. I also like this analogy of DIY for coding. So like I can go buy all the same power tools as a professional contractor. I can build things as a professional contractor might. That doesn't mean I understand the principles and the options and the quality and what the code is and what would actually pass.
So you're saying YouTube videos don't teach you how to build a house? Like,
Though you could. Like, there are people that take that to a level where that's how they get into being a contractor and they learn all the things. So, like, you can go from vibe coding to agentic or professional coding, whatever you want to call it with AI. I think that's totally a viable path. But there are different things.
yes.
And they have different underlying knowledge of the system. And I actually think it's way easier than ever to learn that. Like my son is 13, he likes to code, and it's like use the AI to teach you how to code. And you will have essentially like a world-class professor at your fingertips whenever you want. So the gap is getting smaller, but some people won't ever do that. I mean, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, you could have learned software engineering. Like you could go on YouTube and you could learn the principles.
I mean, boot camps, you're still 6 week, 9 week, whatever.
But
Has
people
anyone
don't.
used the Claude instructor mode?
There's a what?
There's a yeah. So
Okay.
in the settings, you can change Claude to like one. You can have it just be like explanatory, and it'll just explain everything it's doing instead of just writing the code. And then there's an instructor mode where it actually will like stop and be like, "Hey, why don't you write this piece of the code?"
Right.
And it's actually, I think, if
That's
people
crazy.
turn that on and like start
Then it
vibe
would
coding
help
with it,
you
you really
learn.
could learn how to write the code.
What are
yeah.
your thoughts on, so I know like Cursor has roles, Claude has the MDs and the skills and the agents. How much do those act as like guardrails and best practices and like helping versus like just general intuition or experience comes to inform that? Because like back to the designer and Claude code versus whatever, like the theory that was put to me was if we have enough skills and enough agents and enough Claude MDs, they should be able to write production level code. I'm like, but they're not maintaining it, so they aren't writing production level code. So I'm like, at what point do those kind of rules and MD files act as guardrails and best practices versus at what point are they just convenience markers for replayable scripts? Like,
Yeah, it also kind of presupposes that production level code means something.
okay,
Meaning like where you work at is going to have opinions. And if it were before AI as easy as like there's only one right way to do thing in all situations, like software engineering would have been a lot easier.
that's why they have the SDLC. Like, this is the way.
Right. So like it is still a challenge, even with a perfect system that can execute, to know how you want to do something at your company. Like someone might say, oh, let's just do everything the way Google does it because they're the best. Like, right. I'm just using that as an example, but
That's the experience I've had working with ex-Googlers. So
yeah, like just do it this way. But actually, that's a really bad idea if you don't have the scale of Google, if you don't want to pay the cost that Google pays to host these things, if you don't want that complexity. So there's still a lot of spec to think about, like how to design and architect. And I spoke at BYU this week. I don't know.
it was last week because that's why we couldn't record.
Oh yeah, last week. That's right. And the students are asking me like, what do we need to learn versus what do we not need to learn? And I think that's a really good question and an important skill going forward, which is when do you slow down to learn the principles you don't have versus when do you not need to care? Because some of these things you just don't like. Syntactical knowledge doesn't really matter anymore. I could write Go tomorrow at a level that I could have never written Go before.
That is my
Right.
TypeScript experience exactly. Like, I'm just like, language doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. But you need to read it. That's what I was saying. Like, you need to know how to read code.
100%.
But knowing actually like this is how you do that in Go versus Java versus Python is completely irrelevant now. Where that did kind of matter. You could be an expert in a language. Now knowing the principles that all languages share is way more important.
Well, yeah, the science.
Dude, I got roasted so hard 2 years ago for saying, hey, you probably shouldn't learn SQL anymore.
Yeah, I would roast you.
At the time,
I'm teasing.
At the time, I can understand a lot of people were like, this is just LinkedIn nonsense. You know, this person has no idea about the longevity of SQL and all of that. But like, honestly, was I wrong?
Yeah, turns out you were right.
Okay, I will say that.
And if you predicted it was because of AI, I'm impressed 2 years ago.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what
it
it
was
is.
Chris.
That's impressive.
I will say, as a data engineer, I do write SQL, but most of the time I don't. I would have to go look up the schema and do that, and so it is so much easier to just be like, "Hey, give me a query," right?
Yeah.
I'm saying, I think you're right. The language doesn't matter, but I know how to use it, and that's what I'm saying. Like I still need the skill for my
I think the
job.
important thing, right? We're talking about this a lot at work right now, where AI is the monkeys with typewriters experiment. And like the crazy thing about this is that because it's initialized randomly, there is no dispute that LLMs can create new knowledge. They have to, because it is random at like the very base level. You have narrowed distributions for generation because of your prompts and everything. So it turns into more of a problem of, do you have someone on your team who can recognize the full works of Shakespeare as they're being written to tell that this is good? Or do you have somebody who can recognize that this is wrong?
Yeah.
And those are the two things we're really trying to solve, and neither of those is easy.
So next topic, picking a model. I know one thing I wanted to get in here is I know that I have read best practices from larger companies that, like, when you're doing planning and architecture, you want to use reasoning models. And then there's like but you don't necessarily want to use the reasoning models when you're writing code. And those come up with the big vendors. But like, I think there's more to just when you pick a model, picking the right model for what you're doing. That's what we already talked about.
Oh.
So yeah, and Tyler's, again, I'm going to plug your Substack 50 billion times. Because I recommend it from my Substack. That's why. Like, all the time he's like comparing models, and this is what you should do this model for. So like, yeah, how do you pick a model? What is the right model for the tasks when we are writing code or doing anything? Like, I use models all the time to debug my home lab. Like, it is great. I don't remember Linux I use
Models are your CI/CD now?
Sometimes no, Claude's not my CI/CD. I mostly here's the story. My 5090 machines would not connect to the internet or Ethernet. So I had to install a driver, and I was just like looking up all of these bash commands to do, because I hadn't needed to do networking before, right? And so literally I had Claude walk me through all of the debugging to figure it out that it was actually a hardware problem, and we were able to resolve all of it. But I'm just saying, like, that's not, it would have taken me probably 2 weeks with Stack Overflow, but I'm saying, like, there's a model for that versus the model for writing code quickly versus planning and anyway, how do you pick your models?
Yeah, I do always try to run my own benchmarks on newer frontier models. If people haven't heard that term, frontier just means usually it's an OpenAI, Gemini, or Anthropic model. Yep. There are some outside of that are starting to approach that, like you mentioned, Kimi and Min-Max, though maybe they're just distillations of
Minimax, yeah.
Minimax, yeah.
And GLM.
Yeah, GLM I actually really like in the open source world. I run that at home.
That's Chris's favorite model.
Yeah, it is.
They're good. But it's interesting. For coding, I consistently find two things are true. One, that the model does matter, but then the model harness matters.
Okay.
So using Claude, I hear people say this all the time, well, I use Anthropic because it's the best coding model. I use it in Copilot. I'm like, that's a mistake. Like,
Immediately.
It's a mistake for a few reasons. One is you're paying API costs at that point, which
is more expensive than the standout models. Like,
Anthropic's API costs are insane.
I paid $20 for a 30-minute demo using APIs when their pro plan is $20 a month.
Right.
So like,
Yeah, it's idiocy to code
This is
with
like-
API
this is why I
calls.
Dude, I'm never going to pay for a token, I swear. It's so scuffed.
But like, yeah, so first off, I really always recommend use the harness that came with the model. So if you're really into OpenAI models, use Codex. If you're into Gemini, use Gemini CLI or anti-gravity if you're into the IDE. I've always found in all my tests so far that the latest Claude in the latest version of Claude Code is the best for coding. It's not the fastest. Codex is faster. Codex also will code in a more object-oriented way in my experience. So if you're more into that, where I found Claude will be more like okay with just functional style.
Does that settle the debate?
It's I mean, I like functional a lot more, so I prefer it.
That's
Claude
sick, dude.
for Elixir and Codex for Java. We've settled the debate.
The other thing, though, back to the language piece, is don't fight against the knowledge of the AI. Do it in TypeScript or do it in Python. Like, if you have a good reason, like, Go is pretty good. And
I do everything in Go, and it is my hard line.
And if you need to have a binary that you can just send around, that makes sense. And it's pretty good at Go, but, like, don't use Elixir. Like, no offense. Like, there's just no reason to fight against it. All the languages, they're always better in that. All the new tools are coming out in Python and TypeScript.
100%.
Like it's all really well supported. So don't fight against that. And
Does that mean that you shouldn't use Go anymore?
I will continue to use Go because my personal knowledge supplements the AI to make great code.
Excellent.
and it's probably
I'm in
good at Go.
support.
And it'd be interesting to know, is like Gemini better at Go? I don't know.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, because they wrote it.
Yes,
Like,
but most of Java's internal tooling is Java. I mean, most of Google's internal
it's
tooling is Java.
Yeah,
Would that mean that Claude Code is best at TypeScript?
I think it is quite good at it.
I believe that, but like, right,
I've never tested it though.
that's the implication that like.
I mean, Claude
because-
Code, the harness is a TypeScript app.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
and they bought Bun.
Yes,
Exactly.
but apparently Bun's written in Zig.
Yeah, I think that's right. But
Wild.
for JavaScript,
For hosting TypeScript. Because Zig is the modern C. I mean, anyway.
it's fast.
I did see OpenAI just released a open source repo in the Elixir as well. So,
Really? Cool.
Yeah. So
Okay.
my wife's at an Elixir shop and sort of like, Elixir's not dead.
Next topic is
Yeah.
when to do closed versus open source. So since Chris refuses to pay for a token, let's hear your counter opinion.
I use closed source models at work, right?
Well, I
It's
mean, that
not like
doesn't
I'm.
count.
Okay, cool. I've never personally paid for them. So wait, what was the question? What
Like,
models am I running?
yeah, like the next thing is okay. We were going back to model choosing. We've talked about like the kinds of models, the tasks, the whatever. The thing I've seen recently is people using like Kilo Code or something else with like a Kimi K2 or Quen
Right.
open code with Kimi K2, and they're using APIs, which is like whatever. That's neither here nor there. Like the point is, when do you choose the open source model versus the closed source model? Tyler's opinion was he loves Claude Code. It drives you that, but like there's got to be a time when it's like, yeah, well, I want to use open code with Kimi K2, and it's going to get the job done the way I want it to be done.
Can I just say this real quick? One of the main
Yeah,
reasons
please do.
I switch between them is speed. Like when hitting those large premier models, you know, they have the infrastructure behind them to go quickly versus when I'm running something like Kimi K2 or GLM5, something that's large enough to actually handle some of these deeper cases, then, you know, like locally they just run slower, right? Like hitting the
Yeah.
NIM, they're appreciably fast, but they're still just slower. However, if I'm running like a smaller task and I'm, you know, at home saving tokens, I use open code to hit like Quen, you know, 27B or whatever, like, and it's fast. It's like fast and free, and why
What do
not?
you guys run yours on? Is it the Spark that you run inference on, or do you have a different machine?
So I've got a variety of them in an EXO cluster in my basement.
Oh yeah, that's going to kill your throughput.
Yeah.
Do you have to kick off the stuff on CPU because you don't have enough VRAM in your GPUs, or no? Do you usually have
Oh
enough?
no. Generally, so like a lot of those are unified memory, and so it even though it is slower, the system is comprehending it as VRAM anyway.
Okay.
Like, if you add it all together, I think there's about 1 terabyte of VRAM, and then there's another 0.5 terabyte of RAM on top of it, and that's pretty good.
Be careful,
Right.
someone's going to come to your house and steal that.
Oh, I'm waiting.
You're sitting on a gold
waiting
mine,
for it.
man. You said you have a 5090.
I have a 5090. Matt has a 5090. I have my 5090. I use
Tempted to sell that.
mostly for my Twitch chat bot and Discord bot, but I also have a background coding thing where I can just like whisper C++ prompts and have it just like run a job and spit out a PR. That goes against my 5090. And then I am 90% of done setting up my Exo cluster so I can run open code on my Mac Studio against my Sparks plus Mac Studio because I've only got 300 gigabytes of RAM sitting there waiting to be coded against. I know this is why we started a podcast, Tyler. We have a problem. The problem is we love to home lab and we love it more than we have time to home lab.
Well, that and like, I mean, you say I'm sitting on a gold mine, and I agree with you, but like when I started building this in 2022, people were like, why? Why would you do that? And people still ask, like, we get this on the podcast
All the time.
Why would you ever do home lab? Like Claude Code is $20 a month. I think that for me, the question is like, I want to actually help further understanding of these models. And one of the most interesting pieces of research that like you can do with just a Spark is the upper bound of performance of 30 billion parameter models, like 30 to 35. We don't know where that is. We haven't done the scaling laws for it the way we have with 70, the way that we have with 9B, the way we have with 14B, right? That median piece of model size.
Well, they haven't been doing 30 billion parameter models for a long time. Like those are typically
Quen
newer.
just released 3.5.
I know.
right?
The 3.5 has a 35 billion parameter. That's what I was going to download, and then I ran out of time. My dogs wanted to go potty. So
Well, and this is not like a hard and fast thing because they released the 27B, which is dense, and the 27B competes in performance with their 122B, which is an MOE. Right, we're hitting this point where like the actual transformer architecture, the dense architecture, may be making a little bit of a comeback in what Matt's talking about, speed versus quality. If you're interested in the quality, you might run a smaller dense model and just be okay with it being slower.
I mean, technically,
right?
Would a dense model be activating as many, whatever you call them, as an MOE to get the job done? I just like
it activates way more.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the point. Yeah.
MOEs are hard locally because you still have to load the whole thing. So like if you don't have that much RAM,
I know, but Chris told me to use it. Chris told me to use an MOE, so I am.
expensive.
It's just
I'm just teasing.
MOEs are more efficient. Right?
They are more efficient, but
Well,
you still have to load them all in.
Yes, but
You're
if you have a lot of CPU and a little bit of VRAM, then you can get a lot out of an MOE. Anyway, it's just a hardware.
That's the sick use case is when you only have like a 4080 with 16 gigs,
You kick it off.
but you can fit 3 billion parameters in 12 gigs.
Right.
You keep only the expert in GPU and load the rest on RAM, and it's snappy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how I do. MOE is how I've been doing my Twitch bot. There is zero latency on my 5090. Like it feels instantaneous in the Twitch chat with like all of the network latency. But anyway,
I do want to hit like the answer to your question that I was like coming around
yeah,
to.
we should.
So when do you do open source? One of the biggest things for me is quantizing the KV cache. Why would you do that? Because you effectively don't have a context window at that point. You can go, it just scales and scales and scales. And you can go smaller. Like I've tested this. You do lose a bit of quality, but like in my benchmarks, I've lost like 8% quality out of 100 going down to 4-bit quantization of my KV cache. But then I'm able to scale like through RMT training plus quantizing the KV cache.
RMT training is
This is from 2023. Google was able to train models to up to 2 million context window. I don't have the hardware to go all the way that high, but you can combine and I can hit
I will find a link
essentially
for
a 2
RMT
million
training and put
context
it in the
window.
show notes.
Essentially a 2 million context window through RMT training up to 1 million and then quantizing the KV cache, right? So when you have really, truly long-running jobs that you need to keep track of and you need to keep track of every step because they're critical, maybe that's a case for open source for you to actually host it so you have these levers that you can pull because there's no way, like Claude just released reasoning effort as a parameter that people can use. There's no way they're ever going to release, quantize our KV cache, right? It's not happening.
Yeah, big use case for local models for me, and the reason I bought a 4080 because I'm too cheap to buy a 5090 right now.
I know
They're expensive.
they're like
They are expensive.
There's no too cheap at this point with the way prices are going on hardware.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like 4K is pretty common price.
5090 hit the meme. It cost $5,900.
Does it?
Yeah, it cost $5,900.
And I've been when people have been
or
looking for
5,090.
hardware, I've been
Yeah.
recommending. I'm like, hey, you see these Sparks? You can buy almost comparable Asus or whatever with the. Anyway, I'm like unified all the way. But continue.
I did mine because if you want to use really agentic stuff like this use case where you have a piece of model running Pydantic, for example, that's you can then send a command to and has this agentic workflow that it's going to do. Cloud Code is not meant for that.
No.
So what are you going to do? Well, you can pay for APIs, which is crazy. I agree. Like I try not to pay for APIs as much as I can. Though to be fair, like some of the flashlight from Gemini's are insanely cheap. So there are some use cases where I still will pay for APIs. But my goal was to try to build and experiment more with real autonomous agents, not for coding.
Yeah.
For coding, I personally pay $100 a month for Claude Code, and that I don't usually hit that because I don't do it for like my job pays for mine, and so that's like my off time, and I don't go so hard yet that I'm hitting that barrier. Sometimes I'll go to 200. I think it's hard to argue with the economics of that because like even building your own machine right now, it's going to take a while to pay back. But if to your point, you want to actually experiment with other things than coding, like Pydantic or lane graph or fine tuning your stuff,
Or logic manipulation.
yeah, or whatever
That's
you
all we
want to
do.
do. It's really nice to not have to be like, wow, that cost me $100 for a day because you can blow that out of the water.
It's so sick to have some of these chats where I'm seeing the context window is like 1.7 million and the price in open code is 000. I need to take some screenshots of that. This is the meme I was talking about too. Like the 5090 actually hit 5090 as a price. We'll put that in show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show
I
notes.
have an alert for 5090s. I'm trying to see if I can snag one that's
Cool. Let's we'll wrap up with our lightning round. Current code environments. What is your go-to? I'm gonna write code today. I know I have a different one for local and work, but I'm gonna just go with the one I use the most. So we'll just go around. Chris
If
first.
we're just going by the one that we use the most, I'm a freaking heretic. I use Nano as an IDE at this point. Most, right? I love Zed. I use VS Code, but
you
like
use Nano for what?
editing files.
That's all you do is edit files in Nano.
That's like the thing that I do the most because mostly I'll just like use open code and tell it exactly what I want to change after nanoing it and seeing the code. Be like, okay, this is the line, this is what I want, and then I'll go ask it to change. It's weird, and honestly, like I need to just learn NeoVim and bite the bullet and have that be my
I was just
IDE.
wondering why aren't you using...
that's it.
I want you to know today, side note, we were going to go around the board. Today I was like in a code, in just looking at the code, and I was like, I needed to change one word. I had NeoVim open, and I almost switched over to my Claude tab to tell it to change the word, and I'm like, wait, I can do this. And I just like edited the thing. But like the workflow, how my go-to is changing and like how I do things. I did edit the code. I made the PR manually. I did it the old school way for the one word. Yeah. But it was just a crazy, like, yeah, totally. I get what you're saying. It's the natural
like
flow right now.
When I need project level visibility, I will use Zed or I'll use a code tunnel to get that nice familiar IDE experience, and I can see and I can flip between files very often. But like that's not the main thing that I'm doing.
No.
And so I'm going to be a little bit embarrassed, but that's what's happening, and I need to just learn NeoVim.
I'll happy to help. I'll send you some resources.
Please do.
Okay.
a question. Which coding tool are we using the most?
However you want to add. Like if you were just going to sit down right now, write something, what would be your most familiar go-to get something done?
With AI or without AI?
Whatever. Either or and whatever.
I mean, I try to never leave the terminal. So Claude Code is my favorite AI tool, like I mentioned, and then I use Vim.
We can be friends now, Tyler. I never leave the terminal either. It is the best.
I've connected everything to Claude. So like it connects to, I can text people from Claude, I can email, I can add
Why do you need OpenClaw when you have Claude?
Oh, I had this built
For
like
real?
a while ago.
I know.
And OpenClaw came out and I was like, I don't even know why this is that interesting.
Oh my gosh, that's so validating. Thank you.
And I just think it's a huge attack vector. Like, just if you want to have some of this, you don't need all of it. There's no one that's running Telegram, WhatsApp, every app thing on the
Did you
world.
I'm probably the vanilla guy here, but when we say the most, it's going to be a Cloud Code terminal with VS Code up on the side. And yeah, I don't like the terminal inside of VS Code. It's always separate, but that's kind of but I am always exploring. Like, I finally used Codex this week.
Good for you, dude.
Well,
Did you like it?
it was okay. Like, the reason I used it is probably why I don't have great feelings about
Dude,
it. Just
I noticed you didn't say yes. Right.
Yeah, and so anyway, so there's just this whole aspect of, hey, we need to be exploring a bunch of different solutions, but so I'm looking at it as like, we've enabled Cloud Code for our entire company, but in a drop of a hat, we need to be ready to switch. And so that's what I've been looking at, and we're like, okay, I guess I'll finally try out Codex, because we pay for OpenAI and it comes free with the what is it? The work plan, what is it called? It used to be a Teams, and now it's
Whatever
business
the enterprise
plan,
offering
yeah.
is.
Enterprise, yeah.
Well, the one underneath Enterprise. Anyways, yeah.
Oh,
Whatever
Cool.
was underneath enterprise.
I think it's business plan now.
cool.
So I do Claude Code almost everywhere. I do not open my code to look at it. Like, I review the PRs, and like
what I usually do,
occasionally, I'm 90% of the time I'm using plan mode, and with plan mode they don't even show you a lot of the code edits they do to review. So sometimes I pay some. If I have multiple terminal windows open, I probably don't pay anything. But if it's just in one terminal window, I know I have been like, wait, why on earth did you do that? And Cloud Code will come tell me like, oh, I shouldn't have done. Sometimes it'll be like,
Oh,
oh,
you're
I made a
absolutely
mistake.
right.
And sometimes it does give me like no, actually, this is why I did it. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
The user is right to call me on that.
So that's pretty much how I do everything. Is just I tried running Olama with Claude Code one time. I tried doing EXO with Claude Code. That didn't work because EXO only does OpenAI.
I thought you said that it did work.
It connects, but
Oh,
it won't
okay.
make calls because the API endpoints are different.
It's OpenAI compatible, not Anthropic.
Not Anthropic. But yeah, and then I do if I need to open code, it's NeoM. But like, I have not. I'm really bad at just like trusting it.
Well, code review in GitHub is pretty good. I mean, they built it to be good. A lot of times that's what I'll do. I'll just push the PR up and then I'll pull up their
Well, I mean, and
reviewing
I've
tool.
gotten in the habit for years. I've always reviewed my own PRs because sometimes I forget what I write anyway. So it's like I need to review and I can't spell. I cannot spell to save my life. Unless it's like I can spell in Spanish, can't spell in English. Like, it's a whole thing. So like, yeah, just that review caught spelling errors and stuff. So like, I'm used to reviewing my code in the terminal in VS Code, not in VS Code, in GitHub.
Yeah.
So that's my flow. Like, it's Claude Code. I am really excited though to get off of Claude Code at home, cancel my sub plan, and use my hardware. The 30 gigabytes of unified RAM that I just have. And to be fair, usually when I'm working at home, I don't need the speed requirements than I do at work. So it's like, I'm not concerned that it might be just like slightly slower. It's like,
Yeah, especially
I'm
if you're
probably
trying to
watching
go
anime
agentic.
anyway. So like, I want it to be slower.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you start off a big job and then go to bed. Who cares
Yes.
if it's slow?
Dude, those are some questions that I want in like future episodes. Like, number one, how do you get like what are your methods to make sure that your model is not like your coding agent is not generating unnecessary fallbacks for every single thing? And then what do you have going in the corner of your screen
While you're doing
while
it.
you're coding, right? Because like for me, it's Tom and Jerry. Because it's just silly. I can look away. I don't need
You have to watch. Yeah.
But like when I'm sitting there waiting, it's nice to have something.
I mean, I've been coding to Twitch streams for years, so I just like watch Twitch. At work, I watch Twitch. At home, I watch anime.
We should talk about this in like future
In future
episodes.
episode,
This was our lightning
we'll
round.
wrap up. We would love you to follow us on our podcasts. Like and subscribe. Smash. They say smash that subscribe button
Ring the
on
bell.
YouTube and ring the noti bell.
Yeah.
That's what they say. We'll put everything in our show notes. Thanks again, Tyler, for coming.
Yeah,
That
thanks
was
for having me.
great. And then for our outro, our slogan, which is
Keep your
Yeah.
AI on a leash.
Keep your AI
Keep
on
your
a
eye on a leash.
See,
Okay.
keep your AI on a leash. Good job.
There you go.